everyone, this is Carla and welcome back to the studio, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Throwback Thursday. So for this Thursday I will be featuring the Sand and Sea Suite collection. Now the bundle had been in our last catalog, so it just recently retired, but at the time when all this stuff was available, we had for the embellishments we had some opal rounds, the stamp set, Friends Are Like Seashells, and the dies that are Seaside Seashells. Nice photopolymer stamp set that has a lot of nice images, and the greetings that are both in print and script font on them. I really like that. We also have the Seashells 3D embossing folder. Now there is a larger die in this set of dies that does match up with this. However, this is not a hybrid embossing folder, so you can't die cut and emboss at the same time. We also have, this is the Seaside shells. These are actually sticker sheets. There's like a pearlescence on them, and you got a flirty flamingo color, so saffron, and some Seaside spray. Then there is Pearlescent DSP, nice pearlized paper with a very vanilla color to it. And then we have the 12 by 12 Sand and Sea Designer Series paper. So a lot of pastel type colors, some that are more of like a watercolor type look to one side. The colors in this paper are Blushing Bride, Flirty Flamingo, Melon Mambo, Sahara Sand, Seaside Spray, and So Saffron. So a lot of colors in here that have since retired. But we are going to be using some of those colors, and we're going to be using some of this paper. So let me kind of put everything aside and let's get started with our first card. So for my first card, I have, let me pull out all my stuff here. Everything's kind of a bit of a mess. Okay, here we go. So I have a piece of Seaside spray. This measures 8.5 by 5.5, and I've scored it at 4.25. Seaside spray is definitely one of my colors that I really, really like. And it was an in color, so I'm hoping that over in the next coming years when Stampin' Up does their color refresh, that this is one that they bring back, because I really like that one. I have a piece of basic white that measures 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. I have a piece of that Sand and Sea DSP. This measures 5 by 3 3/4. And then I have two scraps. I have a scrap of Vellum, and then I also have a scrap of a new color that just came with our newest catalog that came out in May 1st, and this is Basic Beige. So to start off, I'm going to fold and burnish my card base. And let me get my bone folder. Okay, and we'll set that aside. And then on this piece, I rubbed on here, disappears, okay. So on this piece, I'm going to bring in my boho blue ink. The boho blue is perfect with this color because it's just a little bit darker. I'm going to bring in the greeting that says, "You are unique and completely amazing." And I'm going to ink this up. And I'm going to stamp this right up here. Like so. And then we'll close this up. And I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to bring in my seal, and I'm going to adhere this down to my piece of basic white. So there's just going to be a small border all the way around. Now I'm trying something a little bit different. I don't have any grid paper down. I just have this translucent silicone mat down on my white table, kind of hoping that it makes the picture a little bit brighter with the light. So we'll see with the end result. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside, and actually I can take this and I could adhere this down to my card base. I'll put that right there in the center, like so. Okay, and I'll set that aside. Now, we're also going, other than doing some die cutting, we're also going to be doing some heat embossing. So I'm going to bring in my sand dollar, my shell, and my starfish. I had to think there for a minute what it was. And let me bring in things that I'm going to need here. So this is our Embossing Editions Toolkit, and this is in our current annual catalog. And what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to bring in my embossing buddy, and I'm going to add some to my basic beige cardstock, try to get like some of the static off of there. And then I have, now Stampin' Up! Does sell Versamark, and it's in the bigger ink pad. I did find this little one on the Tailored Expressions website. So I have found that I really like using this nice little cube instead of the full ink pad. So I'm going to ink these images up, and I'm going to stamp that down. Okay, and then our seashell. I'm going to go right here. And then the starfish. Let's move that out of the way. And then I'm going to bring in my white embossing powder. Let me kind of move this. So I'm going to open this. And I got a little spoon. Now with this Embossing Editions toolkit, you get the tray, you get the embossing buddy, you get a brush, and there's also a set of tweezers as well. Okay, so let me put some embossing powder on these. Add a little more shell. And I like to, once I've gone over it once, I like to go over it one more time just to make sure that I got powder on all the spots that I've stamped. Okay. Just tap off any excess. Let's close this up because we definitely don't want to mess with that. Now let me set this aside. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to heat emboss. This is going to be a part where I'm going to speed it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat emboss this to melt the embossing powder. I am then going to die cut these pieces. So out of the dies, there is the star here for the starfish, and then for the sand dollar as well. Now for this particular shell. This shell is actually in this full big die here, and it's this one here, so I'll be die cutting that one out of that. And then on this piece of vellum, on this die, you see that there's some of this seaweed right here. I'm going to just cut off a piece with that in it out of the vellum. So with that, I will be right back. Okay, so let me bring in all of my pieces. Now, with this die, there are some bits on here that I don't need, so I'm going to cut some of this off. I only need just a bit of it, so I'm going to just cut around just so I have some of that. Seaweed, kelp, whatever it's called. Now, the same thing with this shell. There are bits that are still attached to it from that big die, so I'm just going to remove those. Just cut around like so. Okay. Now I'm going to take this piece here and I want to bring in my silicone craft sheet, and I'm going to add some of my seal to the back of this, like so. And then I'm going to place this right up here like so. And then on these pieces, I'm going to add some dimensionals. So I'm going to add a few on the back of my sand dollar. And I'm going to place this like right over here. And then I'm going to take this shell and add a dimensional to the back of that. And I'm going to add this right about here, and then one more on the back of my starfish. And we will place that right here. Okay, and now for our embellishments, let me bring in my opal rounds. And let me bring in, take your pick tool, and I'm going to add a few on here. So I'm going to add one down here, and then we'll put one here and one more up here like so. Okay, so there is our first card. On to our second. Okay, so for my next card, we're going to do a little bit of ink blending and embossing, and it's going to be beautiful. So to start off, I have a piece of basic beige. This measures 8.5 by 5.5, and I've scored it at 4.25. I have a piece of Sahara sand. This measures 5.25 by 4. I have another piece of that Sand and Sea DSP. This measures 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. And then I have a scrap of that Pearlescent specialty paper. So I'm going to start off with folding and furnishing my card base. Uneven, yep. Furnish that. Okay, and then I'm going to take my DSP and I'm going to stamp my greeting that says, "Friends are like seashells, you collect them along the way." And I'm going to stamp that in my early espresso ink. Up. I'm going to stamp that right up here. Hopefully, let me bring it down just a little bit so I can get it straight and not stick my finger in the ink like I just did. Hold on one moment. Let me get that off. Okay. Let's try this again. So I'm going to stamp this right up here in this corner. Like so. Okay. Close this up. Okay. Then I am going to take this piece and I'm going to adhere it to that piece of Sahara sand. You can see the Sahara sand is just a bit darker than the basic beige. Okay, and then I'm going to center this. Now there's just a small border on this as well. Okay, now I'm going to set that aside, and then my card base will set that aside as well. Okay, so for this piece, what I'm going to do, I am going to die cut it with this large die right here. And then after I die cut it, I'm then going to run it through the Seashells 3D embossing folder, and I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. So to save a little bit of time, what I did was, out of that piece that I had die cut out of that large die, I trimmed out all of my shell pieces here. Now, before I continue on with this card, there is one thing that I forgot to do on our first card. I forgot the linen bow for my card. So I'm going to bring in my glue dots, and I am going to add one. Let's see, we're going to put it right up here, like so. And let me add another one. Right next to it. I'll remove these little paper backings. Now these glue dots, they come from past paper pumpkin kits, so I always have extra, so I just go ahead and use those instead. Okay, so there we go. Now this card is completed. So let me continue now on to our next card, because we got some fun things that we're going to do to this. So I'm going to bring in some scrap paper right here, And I have all of my shell pieces. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some ink blending on these shells. And the colors that I'm going to use is Pale Papaya, Pool Party, and Sahara Sand. So I'm going to start off with my Pale Papaya. And I have a rag right here, just one of these, I forget what the fabric's called on these. So I have my little Stampin' Up! Blending brushes in this little stand. This little stand I got from Stampin' Storage. And I have a brush for each of the color families. So I have my orange one. And I'm just going to wipe some excess ink off of this brush on there. And then I'm going to ink it up. And I'm going to come in and I'm just going to brush some color. Now, you know what I just realized as I'm doing this right now? I should have left these intact with the rest of the die and did this and then cut them out afterwards. But it's too late now, so alright, so I'm going to add some on here. So I want to give credit because the whole design of this card, it's not my idea. I have been subscribing to the All-Star tutorials, and each month there's a group of 12 different demonstrators around the world that create projects using whatever bundle or suite of product that they're going to use for that particular month. And this was, I think, was it June of 2021? And Jackie Williams created, it looked more like, almost like a slimline card because it was bigger in size than the regular card size. And she had created her card just like this. The only difference is hers was a lot bigger. So I kind of modified it to fit just a regular size card. So we got one more shell here. I'm going to add some color too. Okay, add a little more on there. Okay, then I'm going to bring in my pool party. So let me put that aside and get my pool party ink. And then I have a little brush that's for my aquas. And I'm going to ink this up. And I'm going to add some to the other parts of these shells. And you could see that the Pale Papaya and the Pool Party work very, very well together. I really love how these colors kind of work together on this pearlescent paper. Just really, really cool. I really like it. I actually made this card, I think it may have been back in 21, a few years ago, and it was a birthday card for someone special. And I really, really loved how the card came out. Add some on this one. So her sample card that she had done that Jackie Williams did in her in the PDF, she used these colors, the Pale Papaya and the Pool Party. But then in the actual video that she did, each of the projects, they do a video on how they did the card. She did it with Pool Party and Fresh Freesia, and that was a really nice color combination as well. Okay, I really like that. That looks so cool. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my Sahara sand ink, and I have a brush for my browns, and I'm going to add just a little bit on these. Kind of tones it down just a little bit. And then one more. Okay, so let me close this up. Okay, and put these ink pads aside. So we're done with that. So I'll move that out of the way. So we have our pieces. Now I'm going to do a little bit of, let's see, let me bring in another piece of scrap paper. And okay, so we're going to add a little bit, do a little bit of distressing on this. So I'm going to bring in my embossing toolkit, and this time I'm going to bring in some gold embossing powder. And what I'm going to do on these pieces, and again, this is a step that I should have done this when it was all intact as one piece, and then cut them out after it was all said and done. So I'm going to add some embossing powder on here, but then I want to rub some of this off because I don't want a whole lot. I just want a little bit. And of course, this is very messy. And rubbing that powder in a little bit and flick some of it off. Of course, I'm making such a big mess. And then we got two more. Now you can see that I'm getting this embossing powder all over my silicone mat, but I do have a lint roller that will easily pick all that stuff up. Okay, so let me get this out of the way, and let's take this out, and let me put that on there, and kind of move this out of the way. Now what I'm going to do, I am going to bring in my tweezers and my heat tool, and I'm going to heat emboss these pieces right here. So I will be right back. Okay, so here's the lint roller that I mentioned that I had gotten. I got this off of Amazon, and it works really well on picking up any of that loose embossing powder that I had on there, so you don't feel that grit anymore. And what's nice about this, you can just pop it off of the handle, take these two side covers off, and then you can just rinse it under the water and you can let it air dry, or I just use a kitchen hand towel and I just quickly dry it off and it's good to go. You don't have to buy all of those replacement, sticky papers like you do for the other one. So I really like that one. Okay, so let me bring in all of these pieces and let me also bring in my Scotch tape. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to bring in my linen thread and I'm going to take a piece of tape and I'm going to tape one end down on the back here, like so. And then I'm going to wrap this around like 3 times, like so. And I'm going to put on the back there, get another piece of tape to hold it down, like so. And I'll trim that. And again, I'm forgetting steps before I do things, but I think I can still do this. So let me bring in my trash bin here. And I got my scissors. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rough up the edges. And now that I got that linen thread on there, I don't want to go and cut that. I want to try and do this working around. So we're adding a lot of distress to this card. Okay. Okay, I think we got, okay, so that's good. Knock off some of that lint from the paper. Okay, so now let me kind of separate my linen thread here. Okay, and then on this, I'm going to kind of create kind of like a bow. So I want a piece where I can tie. And then I'm going to wrap this around my fingers like twice here. Trim that. And then I'm going to take this off of my fingers and kind of hold it in the middle there. And then this other piece, I'm going to wrap this around and tie it in a knot. I'm going to attempt to do that, but actually, you know what I can do? Bring in those reverse locking tweezers again, just to hold that like so. And then we can come in with this, and we can wrap it around this, and then tie it. I'll attempt to tie it because it's near the end of that spool. It's all twisted, so okay. And then I'm going to take this Well, no, I'm not going to do that yet because there's one other thing that I want to do to this. So I'm going to bring in this scrap paper again, and I'm going to bring in my gold embossing powder, and I'm also going to bring in this little Versamark cube, and I'm just going to brush a little bit of this ink on the very bottom, like so. We're adding a little bit more distressing to this. And then let me get my little spoon. And just adding a little bit more of a distressed look to our card. Okay, let me close this up. And let me bring in my heat tool. And let's heat this up. Since we're just doing this part, it's going to go fairly quickly. So we'll just heat emboss this. Yeah. Hopefully you really didn't hear that. So let's cool this off a little bit. And again, because we got a little bit of embossing powder, just wipe it up. There we go. Put the lid on there. Okay, so now I'm going to take this piece. I'm going to add some adhesive to the back of this. Let's go right over the twine here. Like so. And then we're going to place this on our card base. Like so. Okay. And then for my shells, I am going to take this larger one here, and I'm going to add some adhesive to the back of this. And I'm going to place this one like right here. Just placing it right on top of that twine, and I'm going to add some to this other one. And I'm going to place this one right over here, like so. And then what I'm going to do is this bow that I made, I'm going to take this and I'm going to try and get this underneath all of these. So we'll see if we can do this. Don't know how successful I'm going to be. This worked so much easier when I was creating the sample, I will tell you that. I'm going to try and get this under so I can tie it. There we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to tie this in a knot. So it kind of looks like a little bit of a hot mess, but that's okay because we're kind of going for this almost like a grungy kind of look here. So I'm just going to trim these ends a little bit. Okay. Got that. Alright, and then I'm going to take this shell and I'm going to add a couple of dimensionals on the back of this. And I'm going to add this one right over here. And then this larger one, we're going to put dimensional on the back of that. And we're going to place that right there. And then for a really small one more dimensional on that. And I'm going to place this one right down here like so. Now we got a little bit of embellishing to do, so let me grab my take your pick tool. And then I also, in addition to the opal rounds, I'm also going to use the champagne rhinestone basic jewels. So let me grab, I'm going to do 3 of these opal rounds. Put one more over here. And then I'm going to add a few of these champagne rhinestones. Let's see, we got like 3 different sizes here in these. And then we got one more that we're going to put up here. Okay, so there is our second card. I really love the antique-y, grungy look on this. So let me bring in my first card. So here was our fairly simple, nice, a nice blue and the white. Really looks very nautical to me. I love that color combination. And then here's our grungy one that we did with our seashells. So I hope you like the projects that I made for this Throwback Thursday. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. It does help me in getting my videos out there. And it does help me in growing not only my channel, but it also helps me in building my Stampin' Up! Business. So again, I thank you everyone for joining me. And until next time, have a blessed one. Bye-bye.